Greek basketball owner, Brew, tried to buy out Jokic's contract last year and says he'll make another offer to the three-time MVP, telling Euro Insider's podcast, "Don't laugh at all, and I will sign him next year." Is there any chance this is Jokic's last year in the NBA?
Well, look, he knows Jokic will be eligible for a $360 million contract extension after this season.
And he's eligible, for the record. He was eligible last year for a huge extension, delayed it, said he was delaying it for this offseason because it'd be bigger. Now it looks like he might delay it again because it can be even bigger. But he could get like 270 right now. So
I think the owner in Greece is going to he's going to outbid what the Nuggets can do. He's probably going to throw something incredibly ridiculous at him.
That's interesting.
But I believe Jokic will play his prime in the NBA. Even though people, he's stoic, he doesn't show his emotions a lot, he's as competitive as it gets. And if you're that competitive and you're still in your prime, I can't imagine you not wanting to play against the best players in the world. If I'm him, I want to play against Wemby. I want to play against Embiid, assuming he's healthy. I cannot imagine he wouldn't want to do that until he starts falling off. Now, the only way I could see it, Nick, and I don't know him, so I don't know, obviously he's from Europe. Maybe there's an attraction there to get back home or near home. Only way I could see it is if they won it this year. If they won the champ, which I don't foresee happening, but if they won the championship this year, does he say, I really miss Europe, I've got 2 rings, I've got 3 MVPs, I'm a top 20, 15 player of all time, and he will have played 12 years in the NBA after this season. If he played 65 games, it would be about 875 games. Bird only played 897. Magic played 906. He's had a full career if indeed he wanted to leave. I don't see it happening. But so my answer is no.
Your answer is no, and you're
I guess there's
convincing me it is happening.
I guess there's a small chance. Look, if we went to play overseas somewhere, we might want to eventually get back to America.
So there's a couple things here. First is you were talking about the only way you could see it happening if he wins it. My brain went the other way. What if at the end of this year it's like we're not even close? We're out in round 1 again. And you know what? Aaron Gordon wasn't healthy again this year. And if I want to win, I'm going to have to leave Denver anyway. You know what I mean? I'm comfortable.
So you would see. I hear you. I just would wonder why you would go to a lesser league.
Well,
maybe demand a trade in the NBA.
So that then gets me to, because I fancy myself a legitimate NFL collective bargaining agreement expert. I feel I need to be for when I get the call to interview to be the president of football operations for a team.
Locked in, yes.
Basketball, thanks to the new, I was a pretty good expert on the previous CBA. This new CBA with the aprons and stuff, it's a little tricky. With that said, I have it clocked far better than the EuroLeague CBA, which I spent a few minutes perusing this afternoon, where I think the salary cap for the team is 12 million euros, which is to say, I don't think they can outbid anybody. But again, I don't really know the rules. Maybe there's different things that can happen.
Because he made him an offer.
Right, some shipping magnates involved.
A year.
That's why I'm saying I'm not an expert. I don't know who the Greek Pablo Torre is to figure out if they're giving him a different, side deal. I'm not sure. But I'm going to assume if he were to do this, he's leaving a lot of money on the table.
Really?
Yeah, I think it's the only way he would do it. To which I then ask the question, do I think that's reasonable or possible? And my answer to that question is, yeah, I do. Jokic at the end of this year will have made $420 million. He doesn't seem like a guy who's a wildly extravagant spender. I'm sure the horses eat well, but aside from that, it seems relatively modest.
He's clearly not just about money.
Right.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
And so I really thought about it from my perspective. If I had hundreds of millions of dollars saved up, and someone's like, hey, you can have a couple $100 million more, but you're going to live in Serbia the next 5 years, would I be like, no, I don't want to do that. I have the money and I want to be at home. And so I don't really know how much Jokic deeply misses home. He seems to really, really like it there. So I spent time also on Google.
The night after his last
Yeah,
game.
exactly. I mean, when they won the championship, he initially said he was bummed they had the parade because he wanted to go home. And then at the parade, he's like, I like parade. But I looked, Athens is relatively short flight to Serbia. And so I don't know the man. It seems like very few people in the NBA really know him like personally. But there is a possibility that it's not that like he doesn't love basketball as much as he loves horses or anything, but it's that he really loves where he's from and living there. And if that's the case, this is not 0%. He's the only NBA superstar that's not 0%.
Well, if I was Giannis, I'd be like, what? No, exactly. Tell me we're playing in Athens, right? How much is that? Former friend of the show, Bill Barnwell, prior to that Mahomes all-decade fiasco, has a new article noting that only 2 of the last 15 largest Super Bowl faves since 1990 actually won the Super Bowl. About 12% chance they win it this year. Still kind of low, 12%.
Well, so that, I mean, that's the implied, them being a plus 550 favorite, whatever they are, the implied actual odds of that are they have about a 1 in 8 chance of winning the Super Bowl.
So are we overrating the Rams?
I think they have the best claim as the best team in the league, and I think Bill's article is a great reminder that very rarely means you're going to win the Super Bowl. It's so different than the other sport we talk about the most, the NBA, which is being the best team in the NBA, the consensus best team in the NBA. It means it's pretty shocking if you don't make the Final Four. It's surprising if you don't make the finals, and it's, an upset if you don't win the title. That's not how the NFL's ever been. And so it is that what was really noteworthy to me is in this article, there's 8 teams that are bigger favorites than these Rams teams. None of them won the Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. And so now some of them were, one of them, for instance, was the Pats the year after they went undefeated. Okay, Brady blows out his knee, so throw that year out.
Would have won.
But maybe. I mean, but a lot of them were years where the team was healthy, good, got clipped in the playoffs, and a few of them were where the team just didn't have the year that it expected to have and ended up either limping into the playoffs or missing it entirely. And the team coach that he brought up that I was like, oh, I could see a few of the corollaries is the 2002 St. Louis Rams. So the Rams with Kurt Warner won it in 99. The Rams with Stafford won it a few years ago. The Rams in 01 got back to the Super Bowl, lost, as huge favorites to you guys. Good job. I'm pointing at, you know what? I've been so brainwashed by KW's doorstep of destiny. I talked about the 01 Patriots winning the Super Bowl. I pointed to KW when Coach won that Super Bowl, was on that staff.
We won.
Neither of us, for the record, neither of us played.
I'll bring in the ring for you.
And I know the Rams didn't make the Super Bowl last year, but they kind of did. They made the real Super Bowl. It was a championship game. And their quarterback got banged up and was not the player he'd been the previous few years. That one spot on their team, they didn't have a ton of depth, was offensive line. Orlando Pace missed some time. And their superstar skill position guy who'd been MVP candidate, Marshall Faulk, just had his production cut seemingly out of nowhere, and that team kind of fell apart. I'm not predicting that for the Rams, so I'm like, the timeline is similar. Or do they have any real replacement on the roster if Puka goes from first-team All-Pro to just solid? Right. And, the concern about the aging quarterback with a shaky left tackle, all that to me gave me pause on, how inevitable the Rams are headed into the season.
Yeah, it's so hard to go through a whole season and predict who in the preseason is going to win the Super Bowl, just because so many things can change so dramatically with one injury. But when you look at the team that they're bringing back, so I think it's like 18 out of 22 starters are back, and then some of the guys that they brought in to replace those starters that left, both starting corners from Kansas City, which is an upgrade, and that was an area of concern. I think they were about 19th in pass defense. And then you add the defensive MVP, who's now also going to contribute to their pass defense. That's unique. They've never had, in NFL history, been the defensive MVP and the offensive MVP on the same roster going into a season, so that's a really unique situation. So they're poised, and it makes sense why they're being looked at this way. But again, last year at this time, we're talking about, is Matthew Stafford even going to play? And he's a year older, a year more of wear and tear. Hopefully he'll be able to get through the entire season. But that's a huge question mark is, can he go through the whole season again?
Yeah, I mean, they're phenomenal on paper. But when I hear questions on other shows of in the NFC, Rams or the field, that's when I think that's overrated. Because I just think with football, even though they look better than everybody on paper, they're great on both sides of the ball, it's just not, it doesn't work that way in football. And so I think that Stafford at 38, and he's not a question mark, but you never know when a guy might fall off. Devontae Adams in his 13th season was great last year in the red zone. Otherwise, his numbers weren't his typical numbers.
Sure.
I know they had other receivers.
No, but it's why Puka's so important to
Yeah,
them.
exactly.
He's
So
important.
all of a sudden, if Puka's not himself, that receiving core is not what you expected. Aaron Donald, who I know you don't think he'll come back, but it seems like people think they think he's coming back. But he's been off 2 years, and he's 35 years old. So there are some question marks about this team. And they're in probably the toughest division right now. I mean, you got Seattle and obviously San Francisco. So, and the NFC in general is tough. So I think they are being a little bit overrated.
It is pretty exciting, though, if you're a Rams fan, to think that you're going to add Myles Garrett, Aaron Darnold, two quality starting corners, bring everybody back.
I mean, it's decorated as the offense.
Yeah, it's
Just quickly, Coach, outside of injuries, which can happen to any team, the way the ball bounces, just bad luck happens to any team, is there any glaring flaw or something that's on the horizon that you see that could speak of a disastrous, not a disastrous season, but a bad season?
They changed offensive coordinator, so you don't think that's going to be a major contributing factor, but whenever you have a new signal caller, there are growing pains there, but you've got a veteran head coach, you've got a veteran quarterback. There's a lot of things built in. They added Cliff Kingsbury. I think that should add some value to the offensive staff as well. So in terms of overall, the guys they brought back, the quality of the guys that they added in positions of need and areas specifically that they were deficient in last year, it's a pretty good package that they have.
I'm really interested to see how the two Chiefs corners do. I think McDuffie's awesome. Jalen Watson, I think, can be really good. But the corners, the Chiefs have had a lot of corners that Spags developed that went elsewhere, and those teams did not get the same production that they had in Kansas City.
Tomorrow are the Rams going undefeated. Big Ten has 3 of the top 6 teams in the first poll. Ohio State, Oregon at 1 and 2. Signetti's Hoosiers at 6. Joining us now, Big Ten Network analyst Jake Butt. Jake, thanks for joining us. Do you agree with Signetti that the Big Ten is the best conference in the country?
Absolutely. It's undeniable. And I would also say back when I was playing, college football ran through the SEC, so I'll give them their credit. But with NIL, with conference realignment, times have changed, and it's undeniable. Big Ten, 3 straight national champions, 3 different teams, Michigan, Ohio State, and then Indiana being undefeated, 16-0 national champs. Undeniable the success of the Big Ten, and they're not slowing down anytime soon either.
So listen, I know you alluded to the NIL portion of it, but I think it's got to be more than that. What do you attribute this pretty significant shift? Because you're a young man. It's not like you were playing ages ago, but it felt up until very recently, it was a Georgia mini dynasty right on the heels of an Alabama actual dynasty and LSU having a dominant run. To have this type of seismic shift, it can't just be NIL and some conference realignment. Why do you think it has shifted as such?
And NIL is the fundamental part of this. It's the baseline. And I'm not going to name any names or call it any programs, but back when I was playing, there was NIL going on before NIL, and it was going on mainly down in the South. And then once we legalized that, all of a sudden, certain teams that were able to stockpile 5-stars on their bench, those 5-stars aren't going to go sit the bench for an SEC team. They're going to come up north. So we've seen talent be dispersed across all of college football. And then the ripple effect of that is now coaches want to come coach the best players. So the teams in the SEC can't stockpile coaching talent on their rosters as well. And then if we're looking at NIL as a resource battle, you look at the alumni bases, the amount of business success from the teams in the Big Ten. There's a lot of teams up north that have those big time pools of money that are required to compete in the modern college football game.
Jake, you talked about the Big Ten winning the last 3 national championships. They're talking now about expanding the playoff from 12 even to 24. It seems to be kind of the most common thing they're talking about. Do you like that? Would you, when you played and even now, would you have liked to see that as a player? Do you like it if they expanded now, or do you feel 12 is perfect?
Well, once we went from 4 to 12, I think the further expansion was inevitable. And, you know, the 12's been great. I think college football's in the best position it's ever been in. But the issue with 12 is you're kind of caught in between, where all of a sudden, if you don't make the college football playoff, the season is a failure. And I still think there's a lot of quality teams that have been on the outside looking in a 12-team college football playoff era that were good teams. And yet we have to say, hey, their seasons were a failure. Now, when you go to 24 teams, that's going to bring all those teams in. And then the other thing is that creates some fun narratives into late October and November. Outside of the powers that be, the haves at the top of each conference, all of a sudden the middle of the SEC and the Big Ten and the Big 12 and the ACC, for example, the middle of those conferences now will be in the hunt into late November, which puts more stakes on those regular season games, which is fun for all of us.
Indiana's at 6, which to me feels, I don't know, a little bit low. I haven't seen them lose a game. Cignetti just feels still super confident. Obviously, Mendoza's gone. What are your expectations for the Hoosiers this year?
I agree. I think 6 is way too low. They'd be my pick to go repeat and win as national champions this year. And they've reloaded across their roster. And look, replacing Mendoza is no easy task. You go out and get Josh Hoover, the TCU transfer, #1 quarterback in the portal. But across the board, once you get into the postseason, the rosters in terms of on-field talent, there's not a bunch separating them. So what is the big separating factor? It's your coaching staff. It's your coordinators, the ability to scout opponents and implement game plans and be dialed into situational football. Indiana, we have seen that is a proven fact about this staff since Cignetti was hired. And what's rare about them, with the success they had last year, being undefeated and winning a national championship, they bring that entire staff back, head coach, all 3 coordinators, and with a roster that I think is certainly capable of winning a national title. I've learned my lesson. I'm done betting against Cignetti. They would be my pick, mainly for the coaching staff to go repeat as national champions.
I know this team isn't in the Big Ten, but it kind of feels like if it were in a conference, it would be. I want to ask you about Notre Dame, because while Indiana's got the longest winning streak in college football, Notre Dame has the 2nd longest winning streak of any of these teams in college football. I thought they were fairly left out of the playoff last year. I didn't necessarily love how they handled being left out of the playoff, but it doesn't change the fact that Cam Carr's a star, that even losing those 2 great running backs, they've reloaded everywhere. I think they have the best chance that they've had in quite some time, even the year they made the national championship game, to actually win the national championship. Do you agree with me about how dangerous Notre Dame is?
Absolutely. They're one of maybe 5 to 7 teams that I would be willing to bet money on that can actually go and win a national championship. I agree. CJ Carr is a stud, could be a top 5 pick if he decides to come out after this season. The roster is loaded, arguably one of the best defenses, certainly the best secondary in college football. And they're always going to have good O-line play, tight ends. That's always the case. But I think what's the advantage for Notre Dame is they are going to have a chip on their shoulder going into this season. Combine that with a very favorable schedule, they're going to be fresh going into the postseason. That matters in an extended postseason college football era. There's so many things that align and reasons to like the Irish. I absolutely believe they'd probably be in my top 3 alongside Indiana and maybe a handful of other teams that can certainly go win a national championship.
We haven't talked about Ohio State. They've got 2 Heisman candidates in the quarterback Julian Sayin and Jeremiah Smith, the receiver. Which one do you think is more likely to win the Heisman?
Well, the Heisman is really a quarterback award. We know that. I know Travis Hunter won it a few years ago, playing both ways. You got to go back to Devontae Smith at Alabama after the COVID year to see a wide receiver that won the Heisman. Jeremiah Smith is capable of winning it, but it's a quarterback award. For that reason alone, I would pick Julian Sayin. And another reason I like the Buckeyes, this is kind of a side tangent. They went out and hired Arthur Smith, who has an NFL background. Bring him to Columbus. I think he's going to unlock a whole nother element to Julian Sayin's game. So to me, I'd probably pick Sayin.
Do you have a surprise team in the Big Ten? We've got your Wolverines at 16. I think Iowa is in the 20s. Who do you have as a surprise team in the Big Ten?
To make the college football playoff?
Yeah.
I would pick Penn State.
Oh,
you know, obviously they fired James Franklin. Yeah, bring in Matt Campbell from Iowa State. And just to, sometimes you get lucky with the schedule. Penn State's schedule is extremely favorable. They really have 3 games. They have USC, then they go on the road to Michigan. 2 weeks later, they go on the road to Washington. Those 3 games will be the only games that should be considered toss-ups on their schedule. So say you go 1-2 or even 2-1 in those games, they could be 10-2 or 11-1 at the end of the season. That's certainly enough to get them in the college football playoffs in year 1 of the Matt Campbell era.
All right, Jake, I'm going to pivot a little bit. Because you and I have talked for the better part of 10 years, back when you were the best tight end in college football playing at Michigan, then into your NFL career, which was sadly shortened by injury. And what we talked about was 2 things. One was that once you were done playing sports, you wanted to be a broadcaster, and congrats, man. Like, you are crushing it. You're doing a great job. It's been really fun to watch. And the other is LeBron James. So I have a very simple question. Are you riding with me with the Sixers this year, or do you have other loyalty that demands your attention?
I'm riding wherever LeBron James is. I grew up a Cavs fan, then I went to I went back to the Cavs, the Lakers, and now I'm with the Sixers. Yeah. Absolutely. What a fun story, though. I mean, we're all going to be tuned in to watching. Shout out to LeBron James. He's worth a max contract just for the eyeballs and the revenue he would bring to the city. But hey, for all those Jordan fans, look what LeBron's doing to go take care of his team with that major pay cut. I'm
great take. What a take. What a take.
He engaged the GOAT. He ends with the GOAT debate. My goodness.
I know what show I'm on.
Jake, thank you very much. Continued success. We'll be watching you. Thanks for making some time for us.
Thanks, Jake. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get more from the show and to check out clips from other shows on FS1.